All right. Are we ready, Amy? Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. We are beginning our meeting promptly at 9 a.m. To view this meeting's presentations documents, please access Board Docs. The link to the Board Docs website can be found via the D38 website, www.lewispalmer.org, on the Board of Education meeting webpage. And to view the live stream video of this meeting, please go to the Lewis Palmer School District 38 YouTube page. Vicki, could you take roll?
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. And welcome all of our leadership team. Thank you guys for being here. It feels like Monday, but it's Tuesday. So hope you all had a great Labor Day weekend. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Shank, would you lead us in the pledge?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Patty. Okie dokie. We're going to jump right into our work. Number one is B1, State Assessment Update, CMAS and PSAT and SAT results. And our Assistant Superintendent, Amber Wetstein, and Director of Assessment, Dr. Michael Braum, will present data from the 2024 spring state assessments for review for us board members, and they'll be highlighting the district-wide results from the CMAS and the PSAT and the SAT.
All right, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present and discuss our results this morning. And the clicker doesn't seem to be functioning, so maybe Vicki can click for us. There we go. Okay, as Ms. Upchurch stated, we are planning to spend a little bit of time this morning explaining to you about our state assessments that our students participated in this past spring. In grades 3 through 8, students took assessments in English, language arts, and math, as well as science, and you can see the grade levels that participated on the screen here. And then at our high school level, students take the PSAT and the SAT, which measures college readiness. And Dr. Braum is going to spend some time explaining to you our most recent results. We continue to be one of the top performing school districts in the state of Colorado, so we have a lot to be proud of. And we'll also share some opportunities for improvement that we're going to be working on this year as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Braum for a while, and then we'll both anticipate some questions and discussions from you all.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Wetstein. Good morning, everyone. We are going to jump in with the CMAS, PSAT, SAT English achievement. And you'll notice along the bottom for the x-axis, the horizontal axis, E, M, and H, which represents elementary, middle, and high. And those are the achievement percentiles for the last 3 years at each of those levels. Excuse me. One of the things to keep in mind that you may have heard in the media in recent weeks is how the new multi-stage adaptive PSAT, SAT had shown a decline in PSAT, SAT scores across Colorado. There is a 4-page brief about that CE published along with College Board this summer that explains that. We want to be very cautious about how we interpret that data in that prior to this last year, the tests were fixed forms, they were paper. All students took the same exact test, whereas this last year it was adaptive. And so once those results came in, College Board in Colorado recognized that there was a need to revisit the scores over the last 2 years, and they have that brief. If you are interested in seeing that brief, feel free to let me know, and I will share it with you. These are the results.
Quick question on that.
Go ahead, Ron.
Thanks.
Dr. Rom, was just real briefly, how did Colorado compare with the balance of the nation?
Well, for the most part, Colorado exceeds national test scores. One of the things that we have to be cautious about there is that we test all students in Colorado, and nationally, by and large, those students are college-bound students. But even in light of that, Colorado performs well on the PSAT, SAT on a national scale.
Is there anything more defined, like were we in the 63rd percentile and the national average is the 50th? I mean, do you have a little bit more definition there?
What I can tell you right now, like for example, on the English, we're at the 88th percentile or 85th percentile at the high school level for English achievement for this last year. I'd have to go back and look at the scale scores to give you a specific percentile on that, but I can certainly do that.
But those are Colorado
Yes.
results. And so speaking to your question, Mr. Schwartz, not all states, just to reiterate what Dr. Braun was saying, is many states just have students elect to take the assessments that are looking to enter college, whereas Colorado tests all students. And so we don't have kind of an apples to apples comparison when we're looking at those results.
Yeah, understood. I'm just trying to assess, in this case, college competitiveness, obviously. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Math achievement in elementary, middle, and high. Those are the results for the last 3 years. There we go. All right, now we're going to take a look at the CMAS ELA growth. So this would only be for grades 3 through 8 for English, and these are the growth percentiles for the 2024 school year, 2023-24 school year. And our target is at minimum the 50th percentile. And these are the results by individual school for ELA.
And so something important to know about the Colorado growth model is that different from achievement, where students are compared across the state to all students, when we get our growth percentiles, these scores are students growing compared to like scoring peers. So if Dr. Shank, for example, had a specific score in 3rd grade, they would look at all of the students who scored similarly to her in 4th grade and then compare their growth with the 50th percentile being average growth, or what we would be aiming for. So when we're seeing these growth scores well above the 50th percentile, that's really something to celebrate. And where we also see some opportunities for improvement, we are honing in there as well.
I got a quick question. Is there anything in particular that stood out to you as it relates to the middle school?
I think there are a variety of factors that are contributing to that. Some of that has been turnover, and some of that is when we see students transitioning between grade levels. One of the things that I know that the middle school is targeting this year is looking at what are the skill deficits that the incoming 7th graders have to help accelerate their growth at the middle school level. I think that we are trying to do more work with the CMAS data. MAP, by and large, is a very popular assessment, and we use that throughout the school year. But the nice thing about the CMAS data is that it gives us fixed standards, and so our teachers are really zeroing in on that this year. And I think that we'll see an improvement in the growth going forward.
So, sub-question to that, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Schwartz.
Thanks. As it relates to LPMS, are they comparing to Amber's point, apples to apples? Are we comparing 7th and 8th graders with 7th and 8th graders across the state, or are we comparing it with 6th, 7th, and 8th, or a 7, 8, and 9 model?
Yes, it's with their grade level peers.
Okay, thanks.
I also have a question. when we're looking at, for example, Lewis Palmer Middle School, Chris made me think of another question. When we're looking at our growth scores for each of the individual schools, do we have data that shows where the growth scores were for Kilmer? I understand the cohorts change, but just to get a sense of, and that's just throughout Kilmer, but any of our schools to see what the growth scores, how they've changed, gone up or down per year.
Per year, yes, we do.
Okay. Can we get those? Okay.
Yeah, we can create some visuals to bring back and share when we present this same information, a version of this information at the regular board meeting, and provide some trend analysis.
One last question, sorry. Any data on opt-out? Folks that opt out?
We do have participation data. I'd have to go pull it up for you, but I do know that we see an increase in the percentage of students who opt out as they get older. So we see those opt-outs increase, particularly in grade 7 and especially in grade 8.
Off the top of your head, anything significant that would change these scores significantly, or is it relatively insignificant?
Still reliable.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the one thing that I would say is that the state typically recommends a participation rate of 85% by and large, which our 8th grade, I know off the top of my head, I believe it's lower than that. But we can also do, we can do sample sizes, and right now, if we're at about 60% participation rate at the middle school, that's sufficient enough for us to have valid data because of the size of the school. And then the next is our math, and we know that we have some work to do, especially in the math.
These have gone down from where we were, say, in 2022. If
Our achievement remains very high.
I was going to ask,
Our growth has decreased, and so we've already begun working on some root cause analysis and beginning stages of developing our action plans, which will become our unified improvement plans that we'll be presenting to the board. So as you might infer, you'll see quite a bit of focus on improving growth in math as we're moving forward for the next couple of years.
and for those in the back, can you explain the difference between achievement and growth? Not you. Not you, Jess.
Achievement is basically how well the students do on the assessment, and to refer back to what Mrs. Wettstein mentioned about growth. So if you were to take a grade level group of students, say in 2023, and to map them out on a bell curve and to look at the students that say scored at the 40th percentile and line all of those students up, the following year, how they perform on the state assessment in 2024, you would take all of those students in that 40th percentile from 2023 and stretch them out based on their new achievement in 2024, and that would give us the growth percentile. So when we start looking at that's part of the reason why with the school performance frameworks and the district performance frameworks, the growth is weighted more heavily than achievement.
So when I look back at our times as we've gone by, our 2022 results, we were pretty proud of those and it showed just how well we as a district navigated COVID. And kudos to D38 on how we made sure that we were taking care of our students during that time, and that the decisions that were made were the right decisions to get back in school. And so now we're seeing a difference in scores 2 years later. Are we able to see or know a trend that might be causing that?
For math growth specifically, we are beginning that work to really dive into root cause analysis. And so some of what we're taking a look at is years of experience of our teachers. As we've talked a lot about, we're hiring a lot of newer teachers to the field. We've also had a significant emphasis on literacy. We've had a large grant that's been supporting professional development in literacy instruction. The board committed to literacy resources a few years ago. And so we are anticipating a need to really provide additional professional development and coaching around math instruction. So those are some of the things we're digging into looking at our data currently.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Two-part question. One is, I may be reading this slide incorrectly. It looks like there's one of our three secondary schools in here and not the other two. So that's the first question.
So the secondary school is grades 6 through 8 only. This is CMAS, so that would only go
I
through
see.
grade 8. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So in the second years, that's why it's not covering through 12. Okay. And so that's thing one. And then thing two is, at the end of the day, it's just saying that we're not necessarily doing less well on achievement, but that the state is catching up to us on an average for this cohort.
Yes, we are seeing that, especially at certain grade levels. So that is part of it.
Okay. And so then the question, I think it begins a question. It's not a bad thing that everybody else in the state is being more proficient at math in K through 8, correct?
Yeah, we would
So
hope across the board we'd see an increase in
Right.
proficiency.
Right. If they're all in the 90th percentile, it's not a bad thing either. So my question then is, if we go back to slide number 4, and we just look at E and M, are 81 and 84 good enough?
I would say, I think part of it, referring back to slide 6, I think regardless of how we look at the data, there definitely is going to be a sense of urgency. I think that it's part of it is we want to equip our staff, going back to what Mrs. Wettstein was referencing with regard to professional development. One of the things that we certainly don't want, we want to see a balance between our English and our math scores, and rather than an increase in the difference between proficiency in English and math. And so I believe that we'll be fine going forward, but we definitely have a sense of urgency around the math.
And if I
Based
may,
on-
Dr. Brahm, what I want us to understand about our growth in relation to achievement is that, remember what Ms. Wettstein mentioned, is where were they last year? So if students are at or above proficiency, then this year their growth is calculated on their peers that were also at or above wherever they landed, close. They take bands, and it's the relation of their growth from last year to this year with their like peers. So it isn't about other students who are catching up. It is that our students didn't grow at the same rate. They need to be at least at that 50th percentile or higher, would always be great, because then they're even growing more than their like peers. But we want to at least see them at that 50th percentile. So we're there. They still did achieve well this year, our students, as we mentioned, and you'll see that in the data. But they've got to grow at least at a year's growth in a year's time, which would put them at that 50th percentile. Or over time, if they do not grow over time, they might lose at that, they might not be at proficient any longer. So they've got to continue to grow at that pace. Okay? Thank you. You're welcome.
So it's a bit about trajectory then over time. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things that we look at is we look at cohort proficiency, and this is the percent of students that are proficient. And one thing I'll caution you about this, we do like to look at cohort data, but when you look at this data diagonally, keep in mind that when you look at certain grade levels, the percent of students that are proficient is significantly higher than other grade levels that surround it. And part of that is based on how those standards are set by grade level here in Colorado. When you look at this diagonally, there's the cohort piece, and then we'll look at another one on the subsequent slide that will be helpful. I think the one thing that kind of catches our eye, you look at how all grades for ELA have performed over the last 3 years, and it's been pretty consistent, around a 60 to 61%. And then when you look, we look at the math, we see that in 2024 there was a decline. So that goes back to the growth piece. And so if we can turn that around, our growth will lead to higher achievement and going forward. All right, college and career readiness, PSAT results for grade 9. 2024 English is on the left, 2024 math is on the right. This is by school, and the state benchmark is listed on the left-hand side. You'll notice a difference between English and math. One of the things that is, this is not necessarily uncommon. Math typically trails English, in part because the benchmark for math, college and career readiness is higher than it is for English. So that's a grain of salt. We have to take that data with a little bit of grain of salt.
And these are achievement results.
Yes. Well, these are, yeah, this is the percent of students that are college and career ready at grade 9. Grade 10, with the state percent on the left of each table, for each bar graph. And for SAT, it's grade 11. All right. Now take a look at growth, and this is from grades 10 to 11 and 9 to 10. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the growth for English, and on the right side, the growth for math by school. Okay. So one of the things we'd like to have you participate in this morning is a little evidence statement analysis work that we do with our staff and our principals. We get these reports annually, and so what I'd like to do is to pass some things out to you and have you work in pairs, if that's okay. So we are provided these.
Do you have this handy? You don't have your computer handy. I was gonna send it to Ron, but
Oh,
that's
digitally?
okay. Yeah, but that's okay once we get going.
All right, so this sheet right here is the evidence statement analysis report. It is a confidential document, which is why it's not presented as part of the PowerPoint. It's something that we're able to use internally. And you'll notice that there's a line chart. The way that these items are presented are from most difficult to least difficult by the state's data. And the state's data is represented by the green line chart. I'm sorry, the blue line chart. The green line chart is the district. So one of the things that we want to look at is we want to identify where are we performing exceedingly well. So essentially, where are the green dots the greatest above the blue dots? So go ahead and take a look and find 3 or 4 dots, green dots that are significantly higher than the blue dots. So which numbers, when you look along the bottom, which item numbers do you see where we're performing extremely well compared to the state?
4MD1.
4MD1, which is number 7. Okay. Where else do we see?
4NBT 4-2.
Okay, that's 24.
NBT 5, no, hold on,
Uh-huh.
5-1.
26. So when we look at those 7, 24, and 26, number 7, that means that it was the 7th most difficult question on the test. It's from most difficult, easiest. 24 and 26 are much easier items. When you look at that, 4MD, the MD is measurement and data, and then NBT is numbers base 10. So one of the things that is helpful to use, because we look at the back of this, there's a bunch of numbers, and we don't know exactly what those standards are. So we use this in conjunction with the math assessment framework. And all of these items in here are taken from our state standards. So when you flip through that, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, it'll say 2023 and 2024 headers on each page. That tells us in 2023 what those item numbers were, and in 2024 what those item numbers were. So in the 2024 column, we want to look for number 7, 24, and 26. So look for 7, 24, and 26 in those columns. Okay, so number 7, someone able to find number 7? What is that standard assessing?
Measurement.
Measurement and data.
And specifically, when we look at it, it's to know relative sizes of measurement units within one system of units, and then it gives us an example. So that way the teachers know exactly what it was that was assessed. What about 24?
Number and operations in base 10.
And what is the exact standard when we look at this sheet right here? When we look at this sheet right here, number 24, in the framework.
Oh.
In the framework, what does number 24 specifically tell us is being assessed?
We don't see it. Are you
It's
looking
on
at 26?
page 1.
Oh.
Page 1, number 24.
There it is.
24 and 26.
Okay.
24 and 26. There you go. Right there.
Here?
Those two. Uh-huh.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
these two.
All right. So what does 24 say?
Fluently add and subtract multi-digit whole numbers using the standard algorithm.
Yeah, so that's another one that we're doing well with. And what about number 26?
Multiply a whole number of up to 4 digits by 1-digit whole number, and multiply 2-digit numbers using strategies based on place value and properties of operations.
So it's pretty explicit about exactly what it is that our students are being assessed with. And these are all, again, from the state standards. Now, let's pivot quickly to areas of opportunity, which would be where the green dot is near, at, or below the blue dot. Let's find a couple of those.
21.
21, 5,
15.
and 15, and 16, okay? So then what we would do is we go through the framework, and we'd look for number 5, which is at the bottom of page 3. It says solving multi-step word problems posed with whole numbers and having whole number answers using the 4 operations. So that's an area for us to work on. And one of the things, oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to point out because it's important to notice that there's some low-hanging fruit here, because when you're looking at your chart, again, the number 1 is the easiest question on the test. Excuse me? Oh, number 1 is the hardest. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So looking then at 28, 28 is a fairly easy test question where we're very much close to just above the state performance. So we'd want to hone in on some of those easier test items first that students are going to be able to quickly grasp if we're exposing them to that content.
So we have these evidence statement analysis reports every year, and those red numbers on the left are numbers that we add locally to help teachers more easily find these standards within the reports. So this is what teachers use to help inform instruction. One thing I want to caution us on too is that just because we're at or below the state does not necessarily mean we're not teaching it or we're not teaching it well, because sometimes we look at our curriculum and we realize it's in the 4th quarter after the test is over. So then we have to make adjustments within our curriculum if appropriate. So that's another thing that we have to look at, is when we're teaching that content. Any questions?
Yeah, I think I got one. What worries you most about this data?
What worries me most? I don't know if I'd say worry, but I would really like us to become adept at how to use this well and to help it better inform our instruction. I think that this data is important, and it's fixed standards, and we can use it. I feel like we have opportunity to use it more effectively. Good. Mm-hmm.
One of the things, if you're interested, I know Dr. Dattery shared with you in a recent board bulletin, we linked items that give you examples of the kinds of things kids are asked. So if you're interested, you can actually go into that system and find a question that is asking about this specific content, so you can get a sense of what a 4th grader might actually need to perform to do well on the assessment.
And thank you for bringing that up, because if you look at these little red letters that are in the standards, where it might say like 4 NFA2, those are actually hyperlinks to released items for that standard. So that way it helps our teachers better understand how those are assessed. Any additional questions?
I do, I just don't know how to ask it. So math is the one that so we've seen growth in our initiatives. Let me back it up without being presumptive. The initiatives that we put forth for literacy, did we see those making a difference in our achievement and in our growth? Okay.
Yes.
I would say yes, and when we do have a new area to focus on, we want to be careful not to throw out what is working.
Right.
So it doesn't mean we won't continue to focus on excellent instruction in English language arts, but we do know we need to pay some attention to math in the upcoming years.
So with math, what I heard you say when we look at trying to deep dive into where we are, possibilities are years of experience with educators. Are there any other, that's just one. I'm sure there's others.
I think that, how are we equipping our staff to teach math? I think there's a difference between people feeling adequate to teach content and having a confidence in teaching that content, and that comes back to professional learning and ongoing support, both at the school level and also from the district level. Math being my background, that's an area of support that I and our team, education services team, can provide to our our schools.
We also talk about just the societal acceptance of not being a math person. We don't say that about reading and being literate, and so really focusing on a growth mindset that everyone can learn math and everyone can be a math teacher that is presented with that position. And so focusing on a growth mindset in mathematics is something we've also been talking about.
Especially with girls as they get older.
So I'm going to throw out a bunch of observations here. For better or for worse, or fair or not fair, when we talk about the buzzwords of standardized tests and data, and often we see, for example, board people running for boards of education to increase math scores or increase scores. And then sometimes we throw it on a teacher, sometimes we throw it on an administrator, sometimes we throw it on the board. What I've always thought personally in my observation is a student, an individual, and an individual teacher is not defined by a math score hanging on their head. I don't remember. I'm wondering, was it a bad snow day? Did we have to delay testing? There's so many factors that go into it. That being said, one of the things we do pride ourselves on here in D38 is our achievement and our growth with our students in math and in our PSAT and our SAT scores. So for me as one board member, it is essential that we lean into, and I'm thankful that you are all motivated to look into tackling this and discovering and not resting on our laurels. That's very, obviously you guys all hear me say that all the time, that we shouldn't rest on our laurels, that what's good enough for some is not good enough for us. We should be better. And when I see in the news that XYZ school district, we're going to celebrate them because they increased their scores, I want to make sure we're still celebrating us in increasing our scores.
Absolutely. And I know that we haven't even talked about AP yet, and that's coming here in a couple weeks, but we had, for example, we had 240 students take AP pre-calculus last year, and the pass rate was 96%.
That's right.
So there are definitely pockets of things that we should always be celebrating things first, and then going back to finding root causes about areas that we can improve in. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then I think Ron might have something, but I wanted to make one other quick observation. Actually, not observation. I'm going to put you guys in the hot seat and allow you to share your opinion. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. We have 5 elementary schools neighborhood elementary schools funneling into one neighborhood middle school. That then branches back out to 2 neighborhood high schools. And of course, Monument Academy, their students also can funnel in and out as well. In your educational experience, do you see middle school versus junior high school models making a difference in how scores come out?
I would say my strong belief is that the instruction that's happening in the classroom is the number one factor in student success. We also experience just wonderful parent support in our community. There are so many variables other than junior high versus middle school that have a significant impact on student achievement.
Well said.
I do have a question, Ms. Upchurch, whenever it's appropriate.
Please. Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, Tiffany, thank you for bringing these tough questions up because they matter. And this kind of stuff is why we send our kids to school, right? It's the primary thing we do. The challenge here and the art of professional educators is to do it all, per like what Ms. Wettstein said, right? How do we maintain what's working well and upgrade what seems to be lagging behind or not working as well? And so my question for the professionals, and anybody can answer this who feels like they have a handle around it is, what are the leading indicators or the pre-event signs that we could, should, and maybe are looking for, so that we can try to get ahead of a dynamic like this, because it'll happen again, versus react to it.
In other words, not being reactionary, but proactive.
Yes, we have a variety of assessments that students take throughout the year, including just the kind of quizzes and tests, if you will, that are included within their curriculum. So teachers are taking a look at student achievement and growth every day that they're instructing and making adjustments to their instruction based on the needs of each individual student. So asking about leading indicators, we have a variety of tools and assessments that students participate in, whether it's teacher created, all the way to nationally normed assessments that are given 3 times a year.
So did we have that for math in the area that it looks like there's enough change for us to act?
Map as an example.
Well, we do have MAP, and one of the things about MAP that Colorado and NWA did 2 years ago is they created a linking study, and they found that in order for students in Colorado to be proficient on CMAS, their MAP percentile rank had to be 70th percentile approximately, and for ELA it was 60th percentile. So we know when we get into the fall of the new school year, and we have students where we look at the data and they're not at the 60th percentile for ELA, they're not at the 70th percentile for math, that getting them there is the hope and the goal, but ultimately it comes back to growth. So we just want to make sure that when we go from fall to winter that we're seeing that growth on the MAP test and then also into the spring semester, so that it's not only reflective on the MAP scores in the spring, but also on CMAS.
Additionally, what I would add to your, just in thinking big, what are some of our next steps? As Ms. Wetstein and Dr. Brom just said, we have data points currently, and those data points haven't changed to your question. It's how are we utilizing that data throughout the year and really helping our leadership, teacher leaders, building leadership, look at that data in real time and make decision points instructionally about what they'll do next based on what that data is telling us. And so that's the work that we would do through that what you might refer to as a data team, a process, just whatever, how are they looking at that data, coming together and thinking about it in relation to these frameworks that Dr. Brom just shared with us to say, if this is a high impact test and standard that students need to know and be able to do well, then how are they doing as they're going through the curriculum, as they are learning the content, so that they can perform at high levels of rigor throughout the year. So those conversations that really need to happen in that professional learning community time, in our data team conversations at the building level. And we'll be really taking a look at how we can support them, not only instructionally at the teacher level, but also in those conversations so that they can take meaningful action based on their real-time data throughout the year. So we will look at that and have more conversations as a leadership team so that we can support all our teachers and our students ultimately perform well.
So as we close up this presentation, we've talked a lot about next steps as far as data analysis. That's something that Dr. Brom has led school leadership teams in, and our education services team has looked district-wide at the data. We don't want to ignore the bright spots because we have schools that are showing tremendous growth in math. And so really studying what's working well so that we can replicate those practices across the district, and not forgetting to celebrate the achievement that we're experiencing, because we are still very high performing in mathematics, and so we don't want to lose sight of that as well, as we continue to ensure every student is still growing at their maximum potential. Do you want to click the next slide? Dr. Braun talked a little bit about the changes in the PSAT and SAT assessments this year. They were fully online for the first time ever, and so there was some adjustments that the state needed to make in how they were norming those results across the state accordingly. Anything you wanted to mention else about that, Dr. Braun?
Just if you're interested in that policy brief, it was released, I think, in July, and I'd be happy to share it with you if you're interested.
Okay, and then all of our juniors will have an opportunity to participate in the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test on October 16th as well. So we wanted to share that information with you. Any additional questions or comments as we
Mr.
wrap
Brown,
up
any
this
questions or
portion?
comments?
No, thank you.
Dr. Schenk? Mr. Norris?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the effort you're putting into this. It's going to yield really good results, so I appreciate it.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes, thank you. There's so much here that we run the risk of being significantly inundated and having almost data paralysis. And I wonder if you may already be there as a team. Usually when I look into this stuff, you are, but I wonder if we have some kind of model that's proven that enables us to focus on the areas of value in terms of delivering long-term results for the students and mapping to what the community is looking for from our educational system.
I appreciate the feedback, Mr. Schwartz. I really feel that these evidence statement analysis reports, if we help staff focus on the 2 or 3 areas where we are at or below the state performance, that allows us to really zero in on a handful of standards to focus on, and then over time, those standards change, and we just become better and better at a broader array of standards. So we do want to break it down where it's 2 or 3 to focus on areas of emphasis. And so rather than looking at all 29, that really is work that we are already planning to do.
Thank you.
Dr. Braun, I want to say thank you. Your passion for this, especially in the area of math, and how you and Ms. Wetstein, how you guys lean into and work with and collaborate with our buildings, with our students and your focus. I am so proud that we have you guys in our district. So thank you. And I do have one question. Are we still a district of distinction?
Well, that data is embargoed until Friday.
Okay. We don't know yet. All right, so stay tuned. Thank you so much. And so then I look forward to having the same discussion next year where the scores are. And to reiterate, when you say that some of our math scores in some places are where they are and compared to states, it's compared to their cohorts of students that are in bands, not the entire larger group, right? Did I understand that right? Okay.
Our achievement continues to be exceptional
Okay.
across the board. We also have exceptional growth
Okay.
in spots across our district. And so we want to really learn what's working well so that we can replicate that great work and hone in on where maybe we have some opportunities for improvement to ensure every student is growing at their maximum potential.
So we're still a high-achieving school district. We want to have our high-achieving students have bigger and stronger growth to maintain that.
Yes.
Okay.
We're optimistic.
So am I. All right. Anything else for the good of the order until we move on?
Thank you for your
No,
time this
thank
morning.
you. Thank you both. Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on to B2, Strategic Plan Update, Career and Innovation Center. I would like to invite Jessica McAllister, our Director of Innovative Programs, and our Director of Planning, Facilities and Grounds, Melissa Andrews, who will be presenting an update on the status of our new Career and Innovation Center, including follow-up from recent design advisory group meetings and related program updates. And then you guys will also, as I understand it, be sharing preliminary conceptual design plans, which is exciting. And then Last but not least, Chief Business Officer Brett Ridgway will discuss the status of the purchase of the Career and Innovation Center property. Take it away, team.
All right, yes, I'm excited to have the team here to tell you about what has happened so far and where we are now, as well as next steps for the great work we're doing around planning for our innovation center. So I'm going to just pass it along to Ms. McAllister and Ms. Andrews.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having us this morning. We are excited to share where we are at. We've been on quite a journey since May when the board had presented us with direction to purchase the building. And so we want to give some information just about where we've been, where we currently are, and where we're headed. Beginning with, I'm going to try to use this. Oh, it did work. Okay, fantastic. So shortly after we were able to move forward in the direction of purchasing this property, we knew that one of the main pillars was to make sure that we included our community. And so we got really busy and we put together something called the LPSD38 Community Forum. And we advertised that pretty much on any platform that we could. It was sent to email to our families, it was sent on social media, and we repeatedly tried to advertise this as an opportunity to come and share with us how we could design this building to be in reflection of the community's preferences. And so in that audience, we had about 50 people come, representation from community members to industry partners, business partners, family members, students, staff members. There was quite an array of people there. I know that there were some board members there as well, which we appreciate the attendance at that. During that time, we did share some contextual information. We just shared a little bit about where we were, the new direction that we had, and then we also learned some really great information from Dr. Tatiana Bailey from Data-Driven Economic Strategies regarding the economic landscape and then also trends. And then circled around and just reminded people a little bit about what we're currently doing in D38 as far as our career and technical education programming is concerned. At the end of that, we then did launch a survey. And the survey was not only available for people who were in attendance to complete, but we did circle back. And we asked our community on a broad spectrum to watch the video recording of the meeting that had taken place and then also to contribute to this survey. In the survey, we did ask for programming recommendations and then also give an opportunity for people to express their interest in continued conversations. From that survey then, we did have 81 responses. It was open from June 20th to June 30th, and we really did ask two important questions based off of the data that was presented by Dr. Tatiana Bailey. One of them was their perceptions and reflection regarding the growth potential as far as the different ONET occupational groups that were presented, and then also programming recommendations. So what you'll see on the screen is that for both of them, the ideas that rose to the top were that of computer mathematical, healthcare, and skilled trades. Again, we did also ask them if they would like to be interested in continued conversations, and that then launched us into something called the Design Advisory Group campaign. So we began meeting quickly with anyone who had expressed interest in being on the Design Advisory Group. Again, several members that are around this table had shown up to that as well. Our first one kicked off on July 8th, and we had about 25 people in the group. Again, a great representation from lots of different subgroups in our community, several of which wear several hats. So we had staff members who are also community members who are also parents. We had industry partners who are also parents. So it was always fun to kind of gather who was in the audience. We did then take those ONET occupational groups that I showed on the previous slide, the computer, mathematical, healthcare, and skilled trades, and we had an activity where people in the audience were able to come together with and align occupations, because those subgroups are quite large when we think about them. And so it was all facilitated by Hollis & Miller, who is our architectural firm. And again, we had them prioritize occupations within each of the occupational groups that we had extracted from the survey that we sent after the Innovate 38 meeting. So in the center of this image, you'll see those ONET occupational groups. Again, you'll see computer, mathematical, skilled trades. Construction is pulled out, even though it does sometimes exist within skilled trades, and then healthcare. And the outcome of the meeting that we had that first design advisory group meeting came up with narrowed it down a little bit further. And so we had construction, engineering, information technology, manufacturing, and health sciences. Those are around the perimeter are where we started to really focus in on the programming that will be offered in this facility. And we drilled down further, and we're continuing to do an analysis into even further subgroups. And so you'll see how they line up on the screen in front of you now. So we have information technology, has programming software design, network and system management and cybersecurity. In engineering, robotics, CAD and CNC. Construction, we have carpentry, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Manufacturing, technician and welding, and then health sciences, CNA, CMA, phlebotomy, farm tech, and EMT. This isn't to say that these are going to be programs that we'll be offering in the very first phase, but it is to say that these are areas that we're continuing to evaluate further and really have intentional conversations with industry partners, post-secondary institutions, and then also recircling the map as far as the data with economic trends that exist. We then took that information, went forward into our second design advisory group meeting, which was on July 30th. And at this one, we had 27 people come. Some very familiar faces continue to show up. And again, great representation all around. In this meeting, we did talk about learning beliefs and layout options and adjacencies. And again, it was facilitated by Hollis and Miller, our architectural firm. In this meeting, we were really talking about the movement around the space. And so in just a little while, Ms. Andrews is going to share some of the outcomes of some of those meetings. And we also asked some very intentional questions of how should the learning environments feel, both for students and for staff. And so what you'll see on the screen in front of you now are just some of those results that people had shared during that time. So I'll just pull out some of the larger items on these images, and that is because they were listed several times. So by and large, the design advisory group, or the folks that came to the second design advisory group, had shared that the students should feel empowered, connected, excited, engaged, and motivated. The staff should feel empowered, proud, supported, energized, equipped, and connected. And then the learning should feel challenging, inspired, engaging, empowered, and exciting. And the list goes on. What you'll see through all three of those is that there's kind of a theme. There's a thread that's kind of woven in between them. This will continue to be helpful to us as we move forward into this process. And, oh, I think I went backwards. Oh, I'm really going. Okay, so now that led us to our most recent design advisory group that happened on July 30th. No, it happened in August. I just didn't change the date there. In that one, we did have 22 people. Again, some of the very same familiar faces that we had. And in this time, we talked about design language and some expressed preferences, which leads us to the screen in front of you now. This is kind of the outcome of the design advisory group.
All right, thank you. So as we look at these images here, to kind of give you an idea of what the design advisory group was looking at, are, the very top left picture is showing an educational opportunity lecture space within the same classroom as where they're going to be doing some of the hands-on lab work. The same thing with the bottom right picture, so you can see the beds for the hospital type scenario and lecture space. We also have the little center picture with a blue with a little table in there. That's kind of a pull-out space, so there can be some group collaboration in a quieter space that's not necessarily in the noisy classroom. And then we also have, so we had a lot of conversations on what do you want this to look like? Do you want the adjacencies to where they are learning in the same classroom as they're designing and building? Do you want them to be designing in a separate space than what they're creating? Or do you mind them walking across the entire building so that they can reach a classroom space to come back and create in a lab type space? We also had conversations about noise and ability to think as they design. And so we talked about color. Do we want a lot of color? Do we want little pops of color? I think the pops of color is what won in this scenario. We also talked about an industrial look versus the polished look. And so as we look at the different spaces, we might see a little bit of each of those within our building just based on the use of the space. And on this, we have a bubble diagram for you. As we were pulling all of the information together, we have some adjacencies that make a lot of sense. And so on the upper level, which is the far right in the green, all of our IT, cybersecurity, any of those types of classrooms are going to be on the upper level. This area will probably have its own server space, which means that it is not attached to the building or the district in any way. So as kids are learning to do ethical hacking or things like that, they are not actually getting into our stuff and damaging any of our stuff. And then on a lower level, if any of you have been into the building, on the lower level and towards the west of the building, it is the blue section. It's got a lower drop ceiling, so not quite the industrial space that we'll see in the rest of the warehouse. The blue area will be healthcare. And so, again, we're leaving it very general. We plan on having some beds for like a CMA program. But that also leaves us open to us refining what does that look like? Is it phlebotomy? Is it something different? And so having that open gives us a lot of flexibility, which is kind of the intent of the whole building. We can narrow down, refine those, but we can also change them if what we select isn't quite the fit that we want. The red area is going to be our reception area. It's going to have some offices for our director, our nurse, because we do need to have per code a clinic bed in there in case somebody's sick. We have the check-in, so we will have the safe entry just like all of our other school buildings. As we go into the warehouse space, if we look to the green area, this is going to be clean space. So it will be more of what we're doing with engineering. It could be robotics, something with little chips that needs to be a little cleaner as we're building and constructing in that area. And we also have a multi-purpose area in here, which could be like a robotics arena, but it could also be lecture space, and so lots of variation on what could happen in there. The blue area is going to be skilled trades and flex room. And so what we're doing is the flex space could be a lecture location. It could be for, if the construction program moves over here, an inside space for the kids if it was like a very cold day. The skilled trades, that could be things like woodworking. We could have little stations that they have with our partners to the south. They have some really neat little stations where they can do some electrical and plumbing work, and these little stations can roll around and move against walls to open up the other space. So in this area, we will be looking more dust collection. I think everybody's heard a little bit of conversation over the years of we can't have woods and metals in the same place. It's dangerous for fire code. And so this would be more woods-based. We have the ventilation, we would have the dust collection. As we move into the orange space, that is going to be more of our advanced manufacturing, which could be welding, which could be CNC, things like this. And so that's more metals-based, and so we still need to have dust collection, but it is different than the woods dust because they have little fine particles of metals, and so we need to still collect that stuff, so a little bit different, but still adjacent to the woods. So if we needed to run back and forth between places, we could build in each of those locations and have the same unit come out in the end outcome. They would also have ventilation, so we could get rid of fumes and that type of thing. In the center of the building, we have the open collaboration space that's outlined in purple, but also some little purple pods. The little purple pods are also going to have operable partitions to open and close up that space, but it would be the quiet space so that we could have a conference, we could have small group meeting space, that type of thing, another flexible space in the building that we could use.
So moving forward then, you see we've transitioned now to the present. And so in alignment with that work of continuing to design the spaces, I'm now, and I have been actually for quite some time, in something that I'm calling the Insight Acquisition Campaign. So back in early August, I had begun reaching out to several different industry partners, model schools that have done this before, and then also post-secondary institutions, and just in real in-depth conversations with each and every one of them to gather as much information as we possibly can. And so they're all a little bit of a different conversation depending on who it is that I'm speaking with, but every conversation begins with, of course, kind of outlining what our project is and what we're up to against. And then it ends with me asking them for any kind of, what their funding stream was, if they have any recommendations for grants or opportunities that might exist, any lessons learned, and who else they should be talking to. And so to date, I've had conversations with 10 different industry partners, both in all of those areas that we mentioned before, healthcare, manufacturing, skilled trades. I've spoken to 5 innovation campuses, again, just gathering all of the information that I can, and then also 4 post-secondary institutions, because we want to make sure that the courses that we're designing are providing students with opportunities towards post-secondary and also towards certifications. What I'll say, though, is those numbers are changing all the time. So even just tomorrow, I've got 4 more meetings that are happening, right? So constantly having these conversations, getting as much information as we possibly can. And I'll say we also have community partners who have been engaged in the design advisory group meeting who are also having conversations. So that's been really neat. We have one community partner who had a tour of the Air Force Academy and has given us so much information and resources that we plan to continue that conversation. And so it's not only people on the payroll of D38 that are having these conversations, but the word is spreading, and it's really, really exciting. And the lessons learned that we've heard so far: identify and hire teachers in the development phase. Really get some experts in the room that can help us with each of these pathways to account for the weight of machinery and construction. Plan for water, electrical, et cetera, and then also for storage. Some people have said you will never have enough storage. So that is really wise inputs that we're planning to keep in the back of our minds as we continue to move forward. And then also some potential funding opportunities that I've been reaching out to and keeping my eye on are kind of on the right there. There's Gene Haas Foundation, Office of Naval Research. We have a wonderful industry partner who's willing to co-write a grant with me for that. Fanuc Robotics, we did take a tour of Dable, and they shared with us that they are a Haas house and also a Fanuc Robotics house. And so, of course, reaching out to those 2 institutions to try and partner with them further was an initiative of mine. Colorado Springs Health Foundation, Colorado Opportunity Now, Project Lead the Way, Lockheed Martin, MITRE, Mickelson Foundation, and also Colorado Forward. So just continuing to keep our eye on any kind of opportunities that might exist out there, and continuing the conversations that we're having. The plan now, and then this is the programming timeline that I'm operating off of right now. Melissa and I have been in conversations, and then also with Hollis and Miller, just to make sure that our timelines are all lining up with one another. So obviously you can see the insight acquisition pursuit is something that's just going to always continue. We want to learn all that we can from all of our partners to make sure that we are making informed and great decisions. Fundraising, campaign, and research and initiation, we're going to be starting that here pretty soon. I have some conversations and some learning that I need to do in that area, but that's coming. And then focus group engagement. We're going to be going out to our secondary schools and speaking with students and with staff to just gather their inputs as well, to make sure that they have an opportunity to share what their preferences might be as well. Pathway team lead team creation. I am right now working with some of our teachers. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lesson learned of hire your teachers and bring them on in a design phase. Well, we have wonderful teachers. You all, most of you, everyone actually got to see them in action. And so my job right now is to see who of them would like to be a pathway lead to inform the curriculum, to inform the equipment that we might need, to help out with grants and go on some of the tours, just to really dive into this work. Then that will lead to some course creation. Again, what we want to make sure with the courses is that their alignment with post-secondary needs and industry needs. And we also are going to seek to have them be interdisciplinary. So we're going to be working on that. That will lead us to what kind of supply and equipment we might need in these spaces. And then, of course, we are going to begin trying to procure some of that leading into the second semester of this year. We'll be coming to you with some course approval requests, hopefully in November, maybe December. And then also figuring out the operation logistics. So staffing, scheduling, transportation, all of that will be on the conversation list as well. And I think this leads me to passing it over to Mr. Ridgway.
Ms. McAllister,
Yes, about to say.
just as a point of potential clarification on the equipment and supply procurement, based on your experience and learnings from other CTE facilities, what percent of the equipment they have is purchased by the district versus donated by industry partners, and what do you potentially expect in our scenario?
Mm-hmm. So I haven't had an opportunity to really dive into what percentage was donated, what percentage was captured through their, just through purchasing items. So I don't have an exact number to give you, but I do perceive that several industry partners are interested in having these conversations because they understand the value of us preparing their future workforce. And so I can ask that question. My hunch, though, is that every single one that I've spoken to has been secured through an election measure, and so I'm guessing that a lot of it, the bulk of it, was secured through that design.
Do we have a budget set aside for the equipment that we're going to need, and we have some idea of what that's going to cost?
So I've done an analysis. Brett's going to come in with the budget piece of it, but I have done an analysis of the different strands that we have and different models that have done this before. In fact, Dr. Dattery even spoke with her former district about because they did a welding space. All in, and these are kind of old numbers, and they don't necessarily have taken into consideration installation, but each of the strands adds up to about 3.1 million. Now again, when I ask about a manufacturing space, I ask Cherry Creek School District. So you've seen that. And when I ask about...
The worst case scenario.
Yeah, I would say so. It doesn't take into account inflation, though. So, so those are some numbers that I have. I do have a sheet that I can share with you.
Mr. Norris? Go for it.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback on that. What's that?
Sorry, I jumped the line. I didn't see anyone else was waiting.
No, that's all right. Can you go back to slide 13 real quick? I'm really just looking
I
maybe
don't
for
know the number. Tell me when to stop.
The one with the Gantt chart?
no, the map, the floor layout map. There you go. The IT cyber room and the server room, those are unair conditioned. So I just want to make sure that y'all are tracking to plumb some cooling in there for those.
Absolutely will.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
I love the way we're building off of each other. Because my next question also, as it applies to budget and known and unknown costs, when we're looking at the design, I remember being a part of that meeting, and there's this idea and this excitement. I loved the excitement that I saw from the community, and I loved the excitement from the group. When we're looking at design layout, things like a glass wall is much more expensive than drywall, for example. So wanting to make sure that we are being cost effective, yet making sure it is an education space that is indeed inspiring.
We used to call that value-based engineering.
Absolutely. So when our contractors come on board, they're going to help us with that. How can we get the open feel and keep the cost down? Because we've talked a little bit about it'd be really cool if we had partitions here, partitions there. Those are expensive. And so very strategically putting some of those pieces in place will give us some of the open and closing of spaces, some glass, but we also need to have some spaces that are hidden so that if we do have an active shooter or something like that, we have safe spaces. So it can't be all open. And so we are absolutely taking all of that into consideration, from the cost to the drywall versus the glass, all of that.
Awesome. I keep thinking I'd rather see our dollars spent on what is going to have direct impact on our students' learning. But obviously, if you just have an open room, it's not as inspiring to be there and attend and
Exactly.
learn as it is if you have a space that feels and is to the point of those word clouds, that is collaborative and empowering and energizing.
And we can do a lot, like when we were talking about the arena potential for robotics, that can all be done with different colors of tile to outline the space, so it gives enough differentiation that we can have two spaces that are open to each other with different functions and use, just with color, just with tile changes.
Nice.
Or carpeting, for that matter.
I'm still so excited about this. Okay, one more question before we go on to Mr. Ridgway, and maybe this pertains to Mr. Ridgway. We have an aggressive timeline. Are we still tracking that aggressive timeline?
We're getting very tight, but yes, we are still on track.
Well, and piggybacking off that, are there any risks that you see right now?
At this point, no. The only thing I can think of is lead time on items. Once the contractor gets there, we'll have to start making some early purchases to make sure that the long lead items get in on time.
And we know what those are.
Not yet.
And then, just before we pass the torch, Mr. Schwartz or Dr. Schenk, any other questions or comments?
Just really excited.
Mr. Schwartz?
I guess all I'd like to say with respect to the question about the timeline is it's wonderful that we have a T-minus schedule. So the team, thank you for setting that up. And to Melissa's point, we will continue to get tight on the timeline, but it's really up to us as a team to drive it and make it happen, and to be far enough ahead of it that when we run into speed bumps, we cautiously drive over them and keep moving forward.
Good point.
In other words, we're not missing our date.
Yep. And we've got Dr. Dattery to lead the charge with her team. Anything else? All right, let's get to the dollars. Mr. Ridgway.
So I wanted to provide you an update on the purchase scenario. So when we originally signed the contract back in May, I think I mentioned at the time that I wanted to pursue some capital lease financing, and please use that terminology specifically. It's capital lease financing. It's not mortgage. It's not construction loan, anything like that. It's not a debt instrument, and that's the reason why I use those words carefully. Capital lease is not a debt instrument. For us to go into debt, that's where you seek voter approval. And so this is something that we're basically doing out of operations and other strategic sources, pursuing the capital lease. Pretty much as soon as we signed the agreement back in May, the current owner approached me about being willing to carry that financing, to carry that capital lease for us. At which point I said, well, all right, what are you going to do on the sales price? Because that would be the natural trade-off, is to lower the sales price if they're going to carry some of the financing. And so initially he wasn't interested in that. So we kind of went through the summer just as is and pursuing other things. But then here recently we have been able to re-engage on that, and he was interested in carrying it and was willing to lower the price as a result.
Can you refresh my memory what the original price was?
The original price was $6 million even.
Okay, thank you.
$6 million even, and I've been looking for financing, from external sources. Always looking at the bottom bullet point there, kind of on a 30-month term, and doesn't mean that everything will be done within 30 months, but it kind of keeps everything in a very short-term focused in terms of what our payments and our financing are going to be. So what we did essentially, if you look up there to the first bullet point, and this is what I was looking for all along, was to say the interest cost that we would have had with external financing, now some of that will go to the seller, but then some of that we will keep as in addition and that's what represents the reduced cost for the purchase overall. So basically we ended up splitting that we would have gone all to the bank. Now we'll kind of go half to the seller, and we'll be able to keep half of that. So it's just a little nugget to keep doing it as well as we can, and to keep, the whole point with the financing here is to keep our options open, to keep as much cash as we can available to us. So as we go through these questions about equipment and for the design, that we can have some resources to apply to those, as they come up. So instead of just doing this on a pure cash basis, if you initially, I said we had a $10.2 million amount of resources to apply to it. If we did it all in cash, what now we're going to have is $1.2 million taken to closing, and then we'll have $9 million to work on the full build out and the purchase of equipment and stuff like that. Now we are still working with an initial build out target of 4 million-ish, knowing that will probably creep up a little bit, but again, that's the point of this, is to give us some room to absorb that creep as much as we can. So any questions on that? We're still targeting something around the end of the year, either late December or very early January, depending on tax implications for the seller.
Ron, do you have a question or comment?
What would make you think I might have a question?
We felt you.
Dang, I need to get better software. So, but I promise not to ask you about inverted yield curves this time.
Okay.
Having said that, with this financing arrangement, which seems like a great opportunity for the district, where does title sit for the property?
As a capital lease, title technically still sits with the holder of the lease, the financier. So they will maintain title of it. We will have the provisions that indicate when title will transfer based on the payment schedule.
And approximately when is that?
June of 2027. So that's the 30-month timeline that are set up there. And I set up that 30 months so it'd be done before the end of a fiscal year, right at 2027.
Right. That's not usually a thing, but it's just important to note and for the community to understand the rationale and the short nature of this agreement to enhance our agility. So kudos to you for organizing that. Second piece, I may have missed it because I know you typically talk about this, is did you discuss any early payout of this financing?
Yes, we set up the payment, full amortization schedule, and so we have the opportunity to cash out, to close it at any point during that financing term.
With or without incremental expense?
Without any additional cost.
Then I will use the term penalty.
Right. Yeah.
So
no penalty, and to save that additional interest cost.
So really important to note there's no early out penalty in its simplest terms. So it's maximum agility for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Brown?
It just sounds like a great deal. I mean, I'm excited to see this move forward.
Patty?
It's fantastic.
Chris? Any pros or cons? What are the pros and cons to do it this way?
To do it this way, not very long con list. A lot of pros. Keep our flexibility, keep our cash for as long as we can until we decide how exactly we want to apply it.
Excellent. I always forget to ask if the team has anything they want to share or thoughts. Because I do think it's important. This is a work session. This is where we all work together. So I think it's important that the entire team is able to be engaged and ask any questions or clarifying comments as well. But if I don't see any, then Mr. Schwartz, if you are good, then we're going to move on.
No, I came off mute. I have at least one more thing since the team won't say anything.
All right. Say what you got to say.
I really want to reiterate the nature of what we're doing here, because it's, number one, needed and overdue, but number two, and more importantly, the way we're doing it is incredibly innovative. Right? We're not asking our citizenry for an incremental penny. We're creating something out of nothing here that is going to be tremendous. That's exactly what the community asked us to do. They said, figure out a way to innovate with what you got. So we did, and we are. And look what we're doing, and look what's possible. And this is just the beginning. That's why I want to make sure that the team and the board gets this, but for everybody in the room that I can't see right now, you guys are making something out of nothing. You're doing everything the community's asked you to do, and you're doing it in a class act manner. So congratulations. And buckle up, because we're not missing our date.
Well said, Ron. Thank you very much. But we're not resting on our laurels. We have lots to lots to accomplish, and this is so exciting. All right, so thank you so very much. Thank you both. Thank you, Ms. McAllister. I'm excited. We're all excited. Okay, B3, board engagement. Okay, Dr. Dattery, do you want to kick us off, or would you like to kick us off?
I can. Did you
see what I
kind of
just
you
did
just
there?
did? I was like, did you mean it like that? All right. Thank you. I think I'll kick us off. All right. Well, we wanted to, as President Upchurch and I visited about today, and I'm really in an extension of our retreat time together and thinking about how are we going to operationalize our work and truly have meaningful board engagement. Been listening to you and really trying to hit the mark so that you feel like it's a good balance with what you all are requesting and wanting to truly be engaged in the work that's happening across the district, and also knowing that you have busy lives and schedules. So we want to, yes, and jobs. And so we want to make sure that we're providing good balance with that. So in the effort to do that, let's see, which of the clickers does this?
Is it the mouse?
There we go. Thank you. I just have to click on the right one. So, as I just mentioned, the purpose is truly for you as a Board of Education to engage in our district, school, department, and community activities and events so that you can truly understand the district operations and hold me as your superintendent accountable to the goals and outcomes that are identified in our strategic plan. So I know that's kind of a mouthful, but I believe that's really the impetus behind making sure that you know what's happening so that we can talk about those things and make sure that we're doing the right work and that I'm doing the right work and leading that accordingly across the district. And then it's also an opportunity, if we do this well, for you all as a board to collect and gain feedback from community, whether community means internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, so that you can help me and us create policies that reflect our local needs as well as our aspirations, as well as the things we want to become. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of that's the why. So we want to look at this in many different ways, and if we're not hitting one that you see, so this is truly like our time. This is what Tiffany and I came up with of things. We want to make sure we're engaging in district committee level work. We want to make sure that we're engaging in school visits in meaningful ways, community activities. I want to talk a little bit about an idea around shadow experiences, as well as strategic plan and that integration. So we'll land on that one. So this should look familiar to all of you. It's district committees that you had created, I believe, just as recently as last year, at the beginning of the year, so kind of the same time. And so it's similar, but as we talked, there are some differences, and there were some things that were not on here that you actually did engage in as committees. So the first two are certainly ones that we will continue, which is our DAC and our FTC. Or PCAC is what we talk about as far as our Parent and Community Advisory Committee, and then our FTC, our Financial Transparency Committee. So we'll talk about who wants to represent those. We want to continue with that. We don't have representation from all of you on all the different building and school advisory committees. However, you are certainly, and I will continue to give you those dates so that you can engage in those if you would like. But it's really then that funnels to the PCAC level and the FTC level. We do want to continue with the Special Education Advisory Committee lead from the board, as well as a Wellness Committee lead from the board, and a Gifted Education Leadership Team board lead. Staff Collaboration Committee is truly that. It's for our staff to be able to come together, and as Tiffany and I talked, while it is great if you want to pop in just to say hello and support, it's not one that we want to have continual engagement in, right? So that they can really feel what it sounds like we've gotten feedback in the past is making sure that they have an opportunity to speak their voice, and then we will bring that back up into you. And on the calendar consent arts education, those are ones where they are recommendations that come to you as a board, and so we will do our work in making sure that we are giving you the updates rather than having attendance at all those different ones so that we are making sure that we're making a recommendation to you that's meaningful from the group. Yes.
And certainly board members should feel comfortable popping in. And so, for example, I was engaged with the calendar committee just as the top one. But there's opportunity to still engage in the different committees and pop in and making sure that our presence is
Right.
the point is that our committees and our community want to know that the board is leaning in and listening. So Wetstein, were you going to say anything?
I just wanted to make one clarification, if that's all right, that as an example, the community task force groups are temporary groups engaged in specific work. And so these examples were from last school year, and the calendar and consent task force groups have completed their work at this point.
Thank you.
The Arts Education Task Force is continuing their work, and we do, as you heard about in the earlier presentation, have currently a design advisory task force group that's working on the Career and Innovation Center.
Thank you, Ms. Whetstone. I was just going to say that as well, that these were last year's, and so those are continual, those are evolving and changing. And so that's, and again, if they are task force groups, those groups make recommendations to the board. So you will always be informed along the way of the work that's happening. So we came up with, as we looked at what do we need to do this year and really ensure that we have a Board of Education member attached to our different advisory committees. This, I believe, and I really probably will hand this to you, Ms. Upchurch, as you and I talked, two things. One, kind of how did we come up with these different names? I believe it's in large part with things that you've been a part of in the past, but if there are any changes, you'd be able to speak to that. Second, just what we were thinking along the lines, and you can speak more to, at our board meetings, giving updates on these different committees so that as a great community, we're all then kind of aware and abreast of what's happening in these advisory committees.
Yeah. So what we have here was the preliminary, when we all discussed at a work session of preliminary places we'd like to see ourselves or work that we were interested in. Todd, you'll notice that your name's on one that you didn't raise your hand for.
I might have noticed.
So currently, I'm the board liaison for the D38 Education Foundation. It's more of a liaison position. And the board president is typically in that role. Board president can assign another board member to be a part of it. But when we were looking, I was like, wait, Todd needs a committee. Todd needs a committee. So, Todd, if there's a different one up there that sparked your interest, this again was just preliminary, but I wanted to point that out. You'll notice that the DAC, I've been the board liaison for the DAC, and I'm passing the torch to Patty, so we're working in tandem for a bit together on that until you get comfortable in that role. And then I'm not giving up what's true in my heart, which is SEAC. That I'm gonna hold on to that one, and that's why I'm board president, so I get to do that, right? No, I'm kidding, totally kidding. But is there's anything up here that any of you, Ron, you have your name's associated with the Financial Transparency Committee. You probably see that already, but again, I wanted to go through this. If there's anything on there that any of you have a passion for, please speak now. Or if there's anything up there that you're like, you know what, that's just not my wheelhouse, but you're willing to learn. Team, is everybody good with this? That's it?
That was it.
Wow, okay.
No arm wrestling required. Okay, well then if that is, and then I'll let you do part two of that, then we'll make sure that you all have the associated dates from the leadership team lead that is responsible for that, so that you have those.
And this is just for the 2024-25
Correct.
school year, because keep in mind, November of next year, I won't be a liaison on any of these committees.
I did notice that the back is not on this one. Should we have anybody from the board on there?
No, so that's the one that I was saying. So that really, those, you can attend those at the different, but a back is at each building, the building accountability committees. Is that right? Is that the same acronym you were thinking? So those we don't have anybody responsible for attending all of those, or we don't parcel you out into all of those. That really all feeds up into the PCAC or district-wide DAC work. It is okay if you want to attend, however, and I will get those dates so that if you want to just pop in, kind of the same kind of thing, you absolutely can. Just have a presence at a different meetings, but we don't assign people to those.
And we typically will find a time when one or two of us will pop, making sure that we're touching base with our buildings, from our PTO to our staff meetings to our accountability committees. Because I think personally, I do think it is important that our buildings see us as a board, and not just one board member, but each of us having equal weight in leaning in, listening, and being at the table with our customers, with our parents and our staff and our students as well. So I think we're going to be getting a schedule coming up once schools get kind of kicked off on when the PTO meetings are and when the back meetings are, so that we can jump in.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, let's move on.
Okay. Then
Todd,
go ahead.
I'll do introductions with you for the Education Foundation. It'll be fun.
All right. It is fun. They're a good group.
I've actually had some interest in that too, so that's fine.
Excellent.
That's some ideas.
So moving to the next kind of chunk are really around what are the school visits and school events. So I want to actually start here because this is kind of piggybacking on, so Ron, if you're following along, I jumped to slide 9 to the school events slide, and then I'll jump back to the school and department visits. So the school events is, I will be getting those to you. I'm working with our leadership. I'd like to create a master events calendar for all of you that has those big dates. I think that would be really helpful. Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods. So we're working on that. It's new, so just give me a little bit of time to collect all those dates and to get those from our leadership at the building level. But, it'll include all of our big sporting events, our music concerts, theater productions. We've actually got one of those coming up, I'm seeing. So I just want to make sure you have all that, as well as that'll include the back and PTO meetings, parent-teacher conferences, things like that. And then in the board bulletin, I will make sure that you just kind of to spotlight the 1 or 2 weeks, even though you'll have it on the calendar. So if you want to look out 3 months, you'll be able to do that. But then just to kind of keep that front and center for us. So if there's other things that I don't put on there that you're like, hey, we need to get that on there, please just communicate that back with me, because I want this to be a working calendar for all of you. And it will be one that you can either pop up on your calendar or take off so it doesn't distract, right, in Google Calendar the way that works. Okay?
I love fantasies, that calendar is perfect.
I know, right? So then if I jump back to school and department visits, this is kind of new, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but I want to propose an idea, and I again, President of Church and I talked about this in preparation for today. And if you could, Vicki, if you could email this to the excellent Mr. Schwartz, you should have this in your email so that you also have access. This is an idea, and I've already talked with our school leadership about this as well. They're looking forward to this. They like the idea of having you all come at kind of an organized time where we can learn about the work that's happening at each of our schools. Also do classroom visits, because I'm hearing that's would be meaningful, is not only to just go out and kind of talk with leadership, but also to be in classrooms. And then we won't scare them because people know we're coming. And the third thing that I'm hearing from you all is a time to be able to engage with staff that's meaningful. So if we can do all 3 in a visit, I think that would be really helpful for all of us. And our school leadership was really excited about this. As I mentioned, they thought this would be excited might be an overstatement if they're listening, but they were very grateful and they thought it would be good. So did you want to ask or say something else?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on this one.
Definitely.
And the reason I want to jump in on this one is you'll notice that these are once a month.
Yes.
They are in the mornings, though, and I know that some board members' mornings
Yes.
do pose some strain and difficulty on getting in and getting engaged. So I wanted to have a quick board discussion on your thoughts on this, because this was a tentative list that came up. Again, it's once a month where we're visiting a school as a board. And something we've heard from our building staff is that it's important to them that we see they're in and out every day and what life looks like in their building, from a staff meeting to classroom time. But I also recognizing that at the end, we are elected board members to represent the school district in here, but we're also volunteers. So I want to be very mindful of each of your schedules and what your thoughts are. And if there's something we need to do different, because it's very important to me, and it's very important to our community that they know that the 5 of us board members are engaged. So, and I don't personally think it necessarily it should be an expectation that we are leaning in together. At the same time, let's say, Ron, you're like, well, I can't really do Bear Creek on January 31st, right. Or Patty, you can't do Wednesday, April 16th, or Chris, you're like, anything at 7 p.m., I'm out, peace, or 7 a.m., because I hate mornings too. No kidding. But I just want to, if we can at least have an idea of where we all are on this timeline, I think that would be so that we know what the expectation is. And having it in advance so that we know to put it on our calendars in advance. Sir, Mr. Norse.
I cannot make the 4 Wednesday mornings. Wednesday mornings are a pretty big morning.
Ms. Upchurch,
Sir, Ron.
are these dates, as far as the buildings go, important for them, or are you saying there's a degree of flexibility here? Certainly on things where we're 60, 90 days out.
Yeah, I simply came up with this. They're very flexible. Cut to the chase. They're very flexible. What I did do is talk with them about getting a schedule. So if we need to change it, we can. And the times, yes, we can absolutely bump them to the afternoon. In the high schools, we will probably get a little less participation in high schools if we do it in the afternoon, just simply because of all the activities after school in terms of like that staff participation. So they mentioned the morning was better. That said, we can absolutely adjust. So I just want to be upfront about that reasoning.
So might I propose a thought? And I think this morning was a good example for those of you that were in town. Any opportunity we have to wrap this around something we're already doing, like a work session or a board meeting, I think would be really valuable. Because then it's one, we're already likely as board members going to be in town anyways.
Okay. So to Ron's point, a perfect example is Palmer Ridge High School. Is if it's from 7 to 8 on a Tuesday, or Lewis Palmer High School is from 7 to 8 on Tuesday, that's the same date.
Okay.
So we could do that and then jump straight into a board meeting.
Excellent.
I understand that that would be a Tuesday. I don't know if that still is a problem, but that's a really good,
great thought.
Great thought. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our elementaries, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do prior to our board meetings because they don't start school until closer to when we start our board meetings.
Yeah, but those may be due in the afternoon or something. My bigger point is just do it on the same day, where possible, where it's logical.
Okay.
And therefore, your likelihood of having the board members there is very high.
And with that's a great idea. Chris, does that help? Because you'd said Wednesdays really didn't work for you as well. So if we moved it to a Tuesday, whether morning or afternoon, would be more favorable for you as well, it sounds like.
Tuesday mornings better than Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday mornings are.
Okay, Tuesday afternoons still wouldn't work well, because what I was thinking is to what Tiffany was saying is we wouldn't be able to do a Tuesday morning at an elementary because their school day doesn't start till 9, and that's when our work session. But Tuesday afternoons wouldn't work for you.
Plan it for Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
I may just have to figure that one out.
Okay.
Very early mornings are a problem for me.
Not enough caffeine in yet? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Worse than that.
Worse.
Just
I know.
Not enough caffeine in the world, evidently.
I mean, I'll just say that for me, because I have kids, so it just depends on whether or not my wife is able to take the kids that morning or not. So, but this is far enough out that we should be able to plan around it. But I never know how our schedule's going to work out. So if it's just a morning where she's not home,
Right,
I'll obviously have to take them. So part of having kids in all three levels.
right.
Well, and I think the bigger point here is to really make sure that we are making an effort, and if we have advance notice, makes it much easier. There's always going to be those moments that come up. Yeah, if I'm throwing up, I don't think you guys want me there, so if I'm
Yeah.
sick, or if I've got a fever, or if my
Too many
kid got a
traffic
fever.
lights.
If my kid got a fever, you don't want me there either.
So what I'm hearing about is that we're generally liking the concept. Is that okay?
Yes.
First, just to make sure we're generally in alignment with the concept and liking that. You can see on here, I don't need to read to you what's on the slide. It gives you an idea of kind of the general cadence of what the visit would look like. If it's an afternoon visit versus this kind of, it was more of a morning visit of 20 minutes with staff, then we'll do a presentation while they're getting kids in the rooms, then we'll do classroom visits. If it's in the afternoon, we'll just flip that. The visits will be first, and then the meeting with staff would be last if it's an afternoon visit, okay? And then in departments, we'll just shorten it up because we obviously don't have classroom visits, so we can take that out. So I'm hearing good, head nods are great.
Question.
Uh-huh,
Lewis Palmer Middle School, can
Yes.
we make that one a more, since their day also starts earlier, because if we're doing 7 to 8, their day will have started at 8, so would it make sense if it's okay with them to make Palmer Ridge, Lewis Palmer Middle, and Lewis Palmer High School morning visits?
we sure can.
But being mindful of what's best for the building.
Right. And so so we sure can. We can do anything. You are the board, and you get to just tell me, and I'll do it. When I did go over this, as I mentioned, I did talk with our principals about this, just to make sure that had a good sense of it from their perspective before bringing it to all of you as well. Courtney did feel like the afternoon would be a little bit better for them, just even though all of them start in the morning and they're a little earlier. Lewis Palmer Middle is even the earliest of the early. So we would have to give time for you to really engage with staff. You'd even have to get started a little before 7 was our thought. And so we thought, what if we did that one in the afternoon? And that would be probably better for you too, Patty. If mornings, the 2 high schools might be very difficult for you, but that middle level at least would be something I think you'd be able to engage in if I'm listening to that as well.
Yep.
So if we did that, then I'm also hearing moving them all to Tuesdays. Is that the general feeling of the Tuesday of the work session would be our greatest? We'd maybe be able to commit to that Tuesday of being kind of a board day, if you will.
I'm seeing nods. Ron, I can't see your nodding.
That was his suggestion.
I'm not nodding off either.
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
let's see if we can work on Tuesdays if that works.
You betcha.
And if there's hiccups, then we'll work around the hiccups to,
Right.
we don't want them to come to us, we want to go to them.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. And their presentations will really be about spotlighting the work and kind of like, what do they want you to know that makes them really special, or what are they really working on that is meaningful work for them in that year? And so I think those will be good. They'll be able to spotlight.
Great.
All right. So moving then to the next thing. This next, so I already did the school events. So community events, I just put up there as you and I brainstormed. These are kind of some of the main. I'm sure this is not all inclusive. So I'm going to say that this is not an all inclusive list. So I don't intend to make it appear as though we're not wanting to include someone if they're not on this list. These are examples of some of the big things that I've already in just my 2 months have heard about, of ways in which we engage Kiwanis events and Chamber of Commerce. The 3 asterisks behind that are intended to signal to all of us and to you that I am also a part of those. As a district representative, I am an honorary Kiwanis member. I have attended one of their meetings, and I'll be attending at least 1 or 2 a month, each year or each month. And then, these are some of the big events that they do that we all engage in. And the Chamber of Commerce, same thing. I'll be attending many of the different events and just engaging with our community and our business stakeholders in that way as well. So if there's specific things you wanted to speak to around that, if not, I can go on.
No, I think we already have an invite for the empty bowls.
Yeah.
So when these come up, we get emails from the chamber, so I can make sure that all board members are included in that invite. The board is a member of the chamber. Any of these events, when they come up, the more board members that we can get to engage with, this is an excellent opportunity. All of these events, for example, we have business members, we have volunteers, we have elected officials, we have parents, we have our esteemed senior population that engages with a lot of these. So this is a really good opportunity just to be hands-on with who is our community, who is D38, and who is in our Tri-Lakes community, and how are they thinking and feeling about the state of D38. And we see great ideas come about, and just being engaged in that two-way communication where we are going to them, not expecting them to come to us. So,
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Couldn't have said it better than that. Well, here's the clicker. I've got to go. Where is it again? All right. So two more slides, two more parts of our conversation around board engagement. This one is kind of a new idea. It's new, and it was really cool where Chris Thomas spoke about this on Friday, and what she does by inviting you all in to shadow. She calls it, what does she call it again? Her leprechaun?
she calls it the Leprechaun Challenge.
Leprechaun Challenge. Thank you.
And now we've got some staff at Palmer Ridge that have also extended that challenge to us as well.
Nice. So just kind of some organic ways in which that's occurring. And maybe we can be organized and maybe around that same time or in different times throughout the year even, because to really, I've been listening, and again, not only do some of our teachers really love having you just come in and really see at the ground level, what is it like to be with our kids, our clients, as I talk about making sure that we're doing the very best for them every day. What does that look like? Also, there's been some requests from some of you all around how I want to know more. I want to be in the classroom. So while we'll do classroom visits, which will be meaningful on our board visits that we just talked about, if you wanted to do this and really commit to a half of a day, I want to be able to present this as an option as well in an organized way where you would shadow and gain an understanding of what's happening. And maybe you'd want to do a shadow at an elementary and then a shadow at a secondary. You could even, you could do more than one in a year. But I want it also to have our teachers opt into this and have it be voluntary for them. Who would they like to have one of you shadow them for a day? And, they'll probably put you to work. Here, do this, do that. Help these kids with this little activity, whatnot.
Yes, they definitely
Yes, they will.
work.
So come prepared. And then if you would want to sign up, I don't know, we talked about, I don't believe Tiffany and I either one felt like this is a mandatory have to, but we really wanted to make this as an option and have an organized way in which we could provide that opportunity for you if you wanted to take advantage of that as well. So do you like that idea?
Team, Ron, you like that idea?
I'm all for it.
Perfect.
Anytime we can be in front of our customers is a good thing.
Yep.
Okay, then I will work on that and bring this to you as well for a sign up. I do need to give me a little bit of time. I think we don't want to get in too soon anyway. We want teachers to be able to establish routines and procedures and really get some good work. So this is a good time for us to talk about it. And then I can organize this with our building leadership so that they can find those teachers that would feel very comfortable having all of you in at different times. And we will only do one board member at a time. Right. Okay, I was going to say.
Yes, only one board member
Right,
at a time.
at a time. We don't want to overwhelm a teacher or kids and be distracting.
3 or more.
Yeah, 3 or more. No. All right, and then finally, our strategic plan integration work. This is where I would say all the rubber hits the road, right? This is the strategic plan that you all put together that I have been truly fortunate to walk into. And I say that, and I spoke about this as well on Friday, that I did a lot of work in figuring out what this strategic plan meant, what it meant to you all, what it meant to our community, and the different priorities that you have set out and the work that supports that. What I did observe is that it's been a yearly set of actions in order to achieve the different the goals and within each of the 6 priorities. What our team has talked about and what Ms. Church and I have discussed as well is to put out a 3-year plan, to develop a 3-year action plan, and then work the plan. And that may mean that, we say this year, in 3 years, we want to do this and this and this, and that as we go through the next 2, that changes slightly, but it gives us where do we want to land in 3 years, outcomes, and then how do we backward map that within each of these years to make sure that we achieve it in each of those priority areas. So we've had a very busy week last week, as you saw in the board bulletin. Wednesday and Thursday, we were with Dr. Bonita Coleman. She is with Studer Education. She started this work last year, as I had mentioned to all of you before. This is work that the board had engaged in and a contract that they'd engaged in with her and our district last year. We continued with it this year with the fundamental work, having her help us with developing that 3-year action plan and those scorecards. And so as a team, we met all day on Thursday developing these, getting a good start on that. And then we'll take it to our district leadership team at the end of September and further develop the action plans. And that development will then take place over the next couple of months within an action team. So I need to get more. We want as a district leadership team or cabinet, want to have more folks involved from our internal and external stakeholders to be a part of the development of these action plans. So we will be developing these action teams and then creating 3 things. 1, as I mentioned, the end of 3-year outcomes that we want to achieve in each of the priority areas. 2, the action steps over the next 3 years that will get us to that point after the end of 3 years. And then 3, indicators along the way that we will be looking for to know, are we on track to meet that end of 3-year outcome? So those are the things that we'll be working on. We will bring to you in the October board meeting those outcome measures at the end of 3 years for your review and approval. So that needs to come, we want to bring that to you all and make sure that we're in alignment with where we all want to be at the end, at the end of 3 years. And then we will evaluate and say, do we need to extend those priorities? Will we want to change some of those priorities? It will really depend on the board's decision and recommendations at that point in time. But we want to be really clear about, as we were talking, what do we want to accomplish in the next 3 years in these 6 priority areas that the board has laid out. So I'm very excited about that work. It's big work. It's important work. And so that integration with all of you and what that means is that I want to make sure that I am in full alignment with you in terms of the expectations that within each of those priorities, as I just mentioned, and that we then do board updates to you, meaning the cabinet team and I bring to you updates in each of these 6 priority areas on the actions that we are accomplishing in that year and the indicators and how we are doing and performing in relation to getting to that 3-year outcome level or outcome goal, along at each and every year we would do reports. Some years we may actually even do more than one report in a particular priority area depending on what's happening. So take, for example, the CTE innovation work. That's going to be more than just one board report, whereas in another one, we might only require one board report in a year. And so Tiffany and I, along with all of you, will determine what that would look like. But that's that engagement in that, and then we can have discussion, make sure that we are still staying on target. Any other actions that you see that we may need to take in order to further the work, we would discuss at that time. But that would be the idea and how we're kind of moving this work forward. So Tiffany, did you want to add more?
So I know, Chris, you have a hard stop in 2 minutes, but I think this is really good pause for us to also engage in thoughts going forward. I also want to remind, if we forgot to, by taking a step back, when it says BOE and/or work sessions for monthly updates, with our assignments to our committees, we are going to start a cadence where at the end of each of our work sessions, if you've had one of your meetings for your committees, just to share out with fellow board members. That way we are all still also engaged in it. So a wellness update. And it doesn't have to be, you don't need to do slides, no presentation, just a quick recap of what that committee's work is looking like for that month. Maybe it'll be, Aliorum Day Award that we're working on, or maybe it'll be UIPs for PCAC. So just to keep each other abreast of what's going on. And that also helps with the staff. I wanted to get a feel, though, if you don't mind. When we're looking at this and our 3-year long-term plan, how do you guys all feel about where we're going? If anybody wants to be so brave.
This is work that we have started previous to now, and so this is just continuing work that we've been doing.
I'm seeing nods, lots of nods. I'm excited. I have to tell you, I feel like we are on a momentum, on a path right now that is just work that's been needing to be done, and it's good work, and I can't express how super excited I am, and the opportunities that come from this and having that plan in place. When you see the work that you planned on doing come to fruition, and being able to say, look what this team did. Look what we did for our students and our staff. So, but I wanted to get your guys' feel.
What's a UIE?
A UIP, Universal Improvement Plan.
Oh, got it.
So it's work that is required by state law that our PCAC does, because we are a district that does well and a district of distinction. We only have to do ours once every other year, but we do have tendency to do it every year anyway. So often I see. So each school will get together, they'll have their plan, they'll present that to the entire PCAC. And then it'll be presented to us as a board.
Correct.
Talk about that offline too.
Yes, definitely.
But board, what are your thoughts on when you see this and you hear this? What are your thoughts going forward?
It all looks like it comes together to get more done, to make sure it gets done, and if it doesn't get done, to know why.
That's right.
And that's my life.
Yep.
So I'm really excited about that.
I like it. It's a plan for success.
Mr. Brown?
Just going to echo what they said. And I mean, obviously, this is my first year doing the board, so I'm kind of still getting my feet wet on everything. But I like your point about catching up on what we're all doing, because I'm realizing that we all split off and do a lot of different things at different times. So it's good to have an opportunity to catch each other up.
Yeah. Mr. Ron, are you unmuted?
No, I'm not.
Any shares?
Yeah. It's just having something like this is super important, and it's a common best practice, not just in government, but across industry for several reasons. But it's a tried and true proven model, and we should probably give kudos to our regional board president for driving us to do this 4 years ago. And it's so valuable for any new staff that comes in to be able to pick up where their predecessor may or may not have left off. And for anybody like Stacy was, taking a look at the district from the outside, knowing that we have our act together, we're all pulling in the same direction. We have various roles to play, but at the end of the day, it's about a net outcome for our students, staff, and community.
Very well said.
Thank you. Well, I just will give it back to you, and just with my final comments around all of this is board engagement, that I truly want to make sure that I am meeting your needs as a board this year. And each year, that might evolve over time, but that this year, if this is what's going to help us to make sure that we are engaging in meaningful ways, that I need to, and anything I need to do to help make that happen for you, I just want you to be able to either talk to Tiffany and Tiffany will share with me, or share with me directly, either way, just so that I am making sure that you feel like you are getting the information you need so that you can make good decisions at the board level for our district, and to be able to continue to move in the positive direction that we've been. So thanks for giving me some time to pull all that together, and we'll continue to work it. We'll work the plan.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. Okay, I know you have to leave, sir, but if there's anything else for the good of the order, real quick, board, we'll be sending out calendar invites for agenda setting to partner together with that too. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? We'll just go down the table. Mr. Brown?
Nope.
Patty?
Nope.
Chris is nope.
Whether he is or not.
Ron?
No, all good, thank you.
All right, I'm all good too. I'll let you guys get to doing the good work that you get to do, and we're adjourned.
Thank you.
What time is it? 11 to 5.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
11:05, not bad.
Huh? I was a little more chatty today. We could have been more.